Hello and welcome to your October edition of Book Bites, Elementary Nibbles. Book Bites is our program where Hillsborough librarians recommend books for all ages, and Elementary Nibbles is for grades approximately K through 6. This month might skew a little bit older because we have some very spooky stories to chill your bones and keep your bumps goosed all month long. Kids of all ages love to be scared, and while most of these books are in the older elementary age, there are still a few first chapter books and younger J fiction as well. There are so many great scary books that the Bibliocommons this month is a bit epically enormous, and I had to make a spin-off list as well. The main list has scary chapter books, and the spin-off list features the super fun scary story collections with shorter tales that are great for reading aloud around a campfire or at home on Halloween night. All right, our first selection for this month's book recommendations is Ghost Squad by CLARIBEL Ortega. This book has a great balance of humor and spookiness. It's about a girl who is desperate to save her home and her family, most of whom happen to be dead and spend their time in the form of fireflies, but they're still very important parts of her family. When Lucely overhears that her dad's ghost tour company is not bringing in enough money to keep their home, she recklessly tries a spell to help and quickly gets in over her head and into some seriously scary trouble. Full of family secrets, quirky witches, and some terrifying times and graveyards, this is a great October read for a middle range of scary. My next recommendation is The House in Poplar Wood by K.E. Ormsbee. This is sort of a dark and atmospheric kind of creepy tale, in a world unlike our own with shades and summoners and twin brothers trapped in apprenticeships to death and memory that they're desperate to break out of. When a local girl is murdered and their arch-rival Gretchen tells them that she believes she was killed by death, which is not how death usually works. They are out to figure out what happened and how they can use this to break out of their unwanted apprenticeships. So it's very creepy, very delicate and lovely, but definitely spooky. Highly recommended. My final book of the month is NIGHTBOOKS by J.A. White. In this book, a boy obsessed with horror films and scary stories finds that it's not helping fit in at school, and he's decided to burn his writing and become more normal. But when he does, he finds himself lured into a trap and caught in the apartment of an evil witch. The only way to keep himself alive is to tell her a scary story every night. With nods to Hansel and Gretel and 1001 Nights, it's a great sort of dark fairy tale retelling in a modern world. It's full of his scary stories that he's written in his night books that he tells to the witch. So it's sort of a combination chapter book and scary story collection. It's a lot of fun and highly recommended. But we can only read one first chapter to whet your appetite for these tasty nibbles. Which book will it be? And this month I will be reading you the first chapter of NIGHTBOOKS by J.A. White. Chapter 1, The Wrong Floor. After his family had finally fallen asleep, Alex slung the backpack over his shoulder and snuck out of the apartment, easing the front door gently home so it didn't slam shut. The 8th floor hallway looked drearier than ever without any sunlight coming through its small windows. Alex lingered on the doormat, fighting the urge to return to his warm, comfortable bed. If you do that, he thought, you'll still be the same old Alex Mosher tomorrow. Weirdo, freak, loser. Is that what you want? No, he whispered. Before he could change his mind, Alex started toward the elevator at the end of the hall. During the day, snippets of his neighbors' lives leaked through the thin doors. Muffled conversations, the loud blare of televisions, Mrs. Garcia's son practicing his violin. At this time of night, however, the hallway was nearly silent. The only sounds were the grimy light bulb that buzzed like an angry hornet and a soft rustling from Alex's backpack, as though its contents were struggling to escape their fate. Sorry, Alex thought, feeling a wave of guilt. I wish I didn't have to do this, but it's better this way. He reached the elevator and pressed the down button on the cracked panel. Far below him, ancient gears squealed away the silence. Alex winced and peeked over his shoulder, hoping that the sound didn't wake any of his neighbors. The stairs would have been a quieter option, but Alex wanted to reach his destination as quickly as possible so he didn't have an opportunity to second-guess his decision. Ding! The elevator's doors jerked open with a pained squeak. Smudged mirrors paneled the walls. Alex stepped inside and clicked the B button. The basement was his favorite place in the entire apartment building. It was spooky and weird and packed ceiling high with towers of knickknacks left behind by former tenants, like a graveyard for unwanted items. The most amazing part, however, was the boiler, an iron monster built nearly 60 years ago. Alex called it Old Smoky. It was his destination tonight. The elevator doors closed, and the car began to descend in slow, jerky increments. Alex tapped his foot impatiently. Though his backpack was far lighter than usual, it seemed to weigh him down like an anchor. I'll feel better after they're gone, he thought. Just toss them in the flames and walk away. Don't even stick around to watch them burn. Of course, Alex could have just dumped the contents of his backpack down the trash chute and been done with it, but that seemed cruel. Cremating them in Old Smoky felt more honorable, like setting the body of a fallen warrior aflame. Alex figured he owed them a good death, at least. After all, he was the one who had created them. The elevator stopped. The doors creaked open. Alex tilted his head in confusion. Instead of the basement, an unfamiliar hallway stretched out before him. He checked the digital display at the top of the elevator. 4. Must be broken, he thought, jabbing the B button with his index finger. The elevator didn't move. Alex sighed with frustration. Looks like I'm taking the stairs after all, he thought. He stepped off the elevator and headed toward the stairwell. The 4th floor had the same basic layout as the 8th, but it was noticeably darker. Alex glanced up at the light bulbs, wondering if a few of them had burned out, but they seemed to be working fine. For some reason, however, their glow didn't radiate as far as it should, as though the darkness of this particular hallway was harder to penetrate than the ordinary kind. Just my crazy imagination, Alex thought, ignoring the cold sensation creeping down his spine. The bulbs are probably just old, or... He heard voices. They were coming from the apartment at the end of the hall. At first, Alex thought it was just the people who lived there. As he got closer, however, creepy music rose in the background, and Alex realized that the voices belonged to characters from a movie. He broke into a big grin as he recognized the dialogue. That's Night of the Living Dead, he thought. Alex had been 4 years old the first time he saw the movie. He was supposed to have been asleep, but the strange sounds coming from the living room had piqued his curiosity, and so he had crept out of bed to investigate. His mom and dad were cuddled up on the couch sharing a bowl of popcorn. Alex hid behind his dad's easy chair and trained his eyes on the television. He had never been so terrified or exhilarated in his life. By the time that his parents realized they had an unwelcome visitor, it was too late. Alex was in love. At the end of the month, his Thomas trains had been exiled to a bin in the basement, replaced by toy monsters, plastic fangs, and a stuffed ghost named Boo. He dismantled his Lego fire trucks and rocket ships and used the bricks to build a haunted house. At the library, Alex insisted on borrowing only the picture books with little Halloween labels on their spines, despite the fact that it was June. Night of the Living Dead has been his introduction into the world of creepy things, and for that reason it held a special place in his heart. Hearing it now, an overpowering desire to watch the movie again fogged all other thoughts. Alex approached the door of apartment 4E, the static-filled soundtrack reeling him in like a fishing line, and pressed his ear against it. It was one of the earliest scenes in the movie, just before Barbara and her brother are attacked by a zombie at a graveyard. I barely missed anything at all, Alex thought with excitement. He had, for the moment, completely forgotten about his backpack and his reason for coming out tonight. All he could think about was the movie. He was desperate to see it. If Alex had been thinking clearly, he might have realized that this didn't make any sense. After all, he could watch Night of the Living Dead any time he wanted to on his iPad. Surely that was a better choice than knocking on strangers' doors in the middle of the night. Unfortunately, Alex was not thinking clearly. His green eyes, usually so sharp and inquisitive behind their glasses, had gone uncharacteristically flat, and his mouth hung open in a baffled expression, giving him a striking resemblance to one of the zombies from the movie. Alex knocked on the door with 3 quick taps. A woman answered almost immediately, as though she had been expecting his arrival. "Well, look at this," she said, peering down at him. "A visitor." The woman was in her late 20s, with dark skin and short spiky hair. She wore all black and a lot of makeup, especially around the eyes. "I'm sorry," Alex said, his mind swirling. "What am I doing here? I don't know why I knocked. I just heard—" "What did you hear?" she asked, leaning forward with an eager expression. "Tell me." "The movie." The woman smiled. There were tiny gaps between her narrow teeth, giving her the look of one of those weird glowing fish that prowl the deepest parts of the ocean. "A movie?" she asked with genuine curiosity. "That's new. Which one?" Alex gave the woman a strange look. He could still hear the television blaring behind her, the zombie now banging on the window of Barbara's car, yet she was acting like she heard nothing at all. "Don't you know?" Alex asked. "Why should I? The movie's for you, not me." She opened the door wider. You want to watch it? She asked. I bet it's one of your favorites. A beam of fear cut through the fog of Alex's thoughts. It's the middle of the night, and I'm having a conversation with a total stranger like it's the most normal thing in the world, he thought. What's wrong with me? He took a step back, intending to leave as quickly as possible, when he smelled something wonderful coming from the apartment. Freshly baked pumpkin pie, his favorite. He breathed in the comforting smells of nutmeg and cinnamon, and all his fear instantly evaporated. This woman isn't a threat, he thought. She's just a nice lady who likes horror movies like me. The movie's Night of the Living Dead, Alex said, 1968, directed by George Romero. Ah, said the woman, how intriguing. And was I right? Is it one of your favorites? Top 10, right between Let the Right One In and The Ring. Alex shrugged apologetically. I like scary stuff. You sound like my kind of kid, the woman replied, grinning. It's crazy. I was just about to kick back and watch the movie when I thought the only thing missing is someone to share this with, someone who really appreciates it. And here you are. She opened the door all the way, allowing Alex a view of a comfortable-looking couch and a coffee table piled with oatmeal raisin cookies and pumpkin pie. Across from this cozy setup, a huge TV played the black and white images he longed to see. Barbara staggering toward the farmhouse where she would be trapped for the rest of the movie with zombies in hot pursuit. Alex took a step forward, entranced. Well, don't just stand there gawking, silly boy, the woman said. Come inside. Even later, when Alex knew that he had been under the influence of a powerful spell, he found it hard to believe that he had entered the apartment so easily. At the time, it was like his body was not his own, but a moth drawn to the flickering lights of the television. He crossed the threshold. The door clicked shut behind him. Gotcha, the woman said under her breath. She slipped a cold hand around his wrist, and all the energy seemed to leave his body. Alex sank into the cushions of a nearby couch, barely able to keep his eyes open. The woman eased into the chair across from him. The smile had faded from her lips. What's your name? She asked. Alexander. Alex. Which one? Alex, he said. He looked around the apartment in confusion. The television had vanished, along with the coffee table and pumpkin pie. Where did the TV go? Alex asked. It was never there. No, he insisted. I saw it. The apartment does what it can to get you inside. Different for everyone. A movie is an odd choice. Traditionally, it's some sort of food that draws them. Kids are always thinking with their stomachs, you know? I smelled pumpkin pie. There you go. It was becoming harder for Alex to focus. The room kept tilting back and forth like when you first step off the pirate ship ride at an amusement park. He felt like he might be ill. I want to go home, he said. Obviously, that's not going to happen, Alex. He turned in his seat, moving impossibly slow, hoping to make a mad dash for the door. Except the door had vanished. The place where it had once stood was nothing but a blank wall. Where did the door go? He asked groggily. Away, the woman said. Don't worry, you won't be needing it anymore. But that's not possible, Alex said. Doors don't just... they can't... Haven't you figured it out yet? She asked, grinning with pride. I'm a witch, just like in a storybook. She touched a single fingernail to his forehead. And you, little mouse, have fallen right into my trap. Alex tried to stand, but his legs had turned to jelly, and he collapsed to the floor instead. A wave of darkness crashed over him. And that's it for this month's edition of Book Bites Elementary Nibbles. We hope you enjoyed our recommendations, and don't forget, you can go to wccls.bibliocommons.com to see the gigantic list of scary chapter books as well as a list of short story collections. I hope you have a spooky, fantastic October, and have a great day. Thank you for listening.